The Crystal Cave by Mary Stewart. Book 5, The Coming of the Bear, 9. I walked slowly back across the platform towards the door. As I opened it, I heard from below, clear and sharp, a knocking on the postern gate. I took a stride through to the landing, pulling the door quietly shut behind me, just as Felix came out of the lodge below and made for the postern. As his hand went out to the chain bolt, Rafe whipped out behind him, his arm raised high. I caught a glint in his fist of a dagger reversed. He jumped cat-footed and struck with the hilt. Felix dropped where he stood. There must have been some slight sound audible to the man outside, above the roaring of the sea, for his voice came sharply. "What is it, Felix?" And the knocking came again, harder than before. I was already halfway down the flight. Rafe had stooped to the porter's body, but turned as he saw me coming, and interpreted my gesture correctly, for he straightened, calling out clearly, "Who's there?" "A pilgrim!" It was a man's voice, urgent and breathless. I ran lightly down the rest of the flight. As I ran, I was stripping my cloak off and winding it round my left arm. Rafe threw me a look from which all the gaiety and daring had gone. He had no need even to ask the next question. We both knew the answer. "Who makes the pilgrimage?" The boy's voice was hoarse. "Brithale! Now open up quickly!" "My lord Brithale, my lord, I cannot. I have no orders to admit anyone this way." He was watching me as I stooped, took Felix under the armpits, and dragged him with as little noise as I could back into the lodge and out of sight. I saw Rafe lick his lips. Can you not ride to the main gate, my lord? The Duchess will be asleep, and I have no orders." "Who's that?" demanded Brithale. "Rafe, by your voice. Where's Felix?" "Gone up to the guard room, sir." "Then get the key from him or send him down." The man's voice roughened, and a fist thudded against the gate. "Do as I say, boy, or by God, I'll have the skin off your back. I have a message for the Duchess, and she won't thank you for holding me here. Come now, hurry up." The key's here, my lord. A moment." He threw a desperate look over his shoulder as he made a business of fumbling with the lock. I left the unconscious man bundled out of sight, and was back at Rafe's shoulder, breathing in his ear. "See if he's alone first, then let him in." He nodded, and the door opened on its chain bolt. Under cover of the noise it made, I had my sword out and melted into the shadow behind the boy, where the opening door would screen me from Brithale. I stood back against the wall. Rafe put his eye to the gap, then drew back with a nod at me and began to slide the chain out of its socket. "Excuse me, my lord Brithale." He sounded abject and confused. I had to make sure. "Is there trouble?" "What else?" Brithale thrust the door open so sharply that it would have thudded into me if Rafe had not checked it. "Never mind, you did well enough." He strode in and stopped, towering over the boy. "Has anyone else been to this gate tonight?" Why, no, sir." Rafe sounded scared, as well he might, and therefore convincing. "Not while I've been here, and Felix said nothing." "Why, what's happened?" Brithale gave a grunt, and his accoutrements jingled as he shrugged. "There was a fellow down yonder, a horseman. He attacked us. I left Jordan to deal with him. There's been nothing here, then? No trouble at all?" "None, my lord." "Then lock the gate again, and let none in but Jordan. And now I must see the Duchess. I bring grave news, Rafe. The Duke is dead." "The Duke!" The boy began to stammer. He made no attempt to shut the gate, but left it swinging free. It hid Brithale from me still, but Rafe was just beside me, and in the dim light I saw his face go pinched and blank with shock. "The Duke? Dead, my lord? Murdered?" Brithale, already moving, checked and turned. In another pace he would be clear of the door, which hid me from him. I must not let him reach the steps and get above me. "Murdered? Why, in God's name? Who would do that? That's not Uther's way. No, the Duke took the chance before the king got here, and we attacked the king's camp tonight." "Murdered? Why, in God's name? Who would do that?" That's not Uther's way, no. The Duke took the chance before the king got here, and we attacked the king's camp tonight. Out at Demilioch, but they were ready. Gorlois was killed in the first sally. I rode with Jordan to bring the news. We came straight from the field. Now lock the gate and do as I say. He turned away and made for the steps. There was room now to use a sword. I stepped out from the shadow behind the door. Brithale, the man whirled. His reactions were so quick that they cancelled out my advantage of surprise. I suppose I need not have spoken at all, but again, there are certain things a prince must do. It cost me dear enough, and could have cost me my life. I should have remembered that tonight I was no prince, I was fate's creature. Like Gorlois, whom I had betrayed, and Brithale, whom I now must kill. And I was the future's hostage. But the burden weighed heavy on me, and his sword was out before mine was raised, and then we stood measuring one another, eye to eye. He recognized me then, as our eyes met. I saw the shock in his, a quick flash of fear which vanished in a moment, that moment when my stance and my drawn sword told him that this would be his kind of fight, not mine. He may have seen in my face that I had already fought harder than he that night. I should have known you were here. Jordan said it was your man down there. You damned enchanter. Rafe! Felix! Guard! Ho there, guard! I saw he had not grasped straight away that I had been inside the gate all along. Then the silence on the stairway, and Rafe's quick move away from me to shut the gate, told its own story, fast as a wolf, too quickly for me to do anything. Brithale swept his left arm with its clenched mailed fist, smashing into the side of the boy's head. Rafe dropped without a sound, his body wedging the gate wide open. Brithale leapt back into the gateway. "Jordan! Jordan! To me! Treachery!" Then I was on him, blundering somehow through his guard, breast to breast. Our swords bit and slithered together with whining metal and the clash of sparks. Rapid steps down the stairs. Ulfin's voice. "My Lord Rafe!" I said in gasps, "Ulfin, tell the king. Gorlois is dead. We must get back. Hurry." I heard him go, fast up the stairs at a stumbling run. Brithale said through his teeth, "The king. Now I see you, you pandering whoremaster." He was a big man, a fighter in his prime, and justly angry. I was without experience and hating what I must do, but I must do it. I was no longer a prince, or even a man fighting by the rules of men. I was a wild animal, fighting to kill because it must. With my free hand, I struck him hard in the mouth and saw the surprise in his eyes as he jumped back to disengage his sword. Then he came in fast, the sword a flashing ring of iron round him. Somehow I ducked under the whistling blade, parried a blow and held it, and lashed a kick that took him full on the knee. The sword whipped down past my cheek with a hiss like a burn. I felt the hot sting of pain and the blood running. Then, as his weight went on the bruised knee, he trod crookedly, slipped on the soaked turf, and fell heavily, his elbow striking a stone, and the sword flying from his hand. Any other man would have stepped back to let him pick it up. I went down on him with all the weight I had, and my own sword shortened, stabbing for his throat. It was light now, and growing lighter. I saw the contempt and fury in his eyes. As he rolled away from the stabbing blade, it missed him, and drove deep into the spongy tuft of sea pink. In an unguarded second, as I fought to free it, his tactics shifted to match mine, and with that iron fist he struck me hard behind the ear. Then, wrenching himself aside, was on his feet and plunging down the dreadful slope to where his own sword lay, shining in the grass 2 paces from the cliff's edge. If he reached it, he would kill me in seconds. I rolled, bunching to get my feet, flinging myself anyhow down the slimy slope toward the sword. He caught me half on my knees. His booted foot drove into my side, then into my back. The pain broke in me like a bubble of blood and my bones melted, throwing me flat again. But I felt my flailing foot catch the metal, and the sword jerked from its hold in the turf to skid with how gentle a shimmer over the edge. Seconds later, it seemed, we could hear, thin and sweet through the thunder of the waves, the whine of metal as it struck the rocks below. But before even the sound reached us, he was on me again. I had a knee under me and was dragging myself up painfully. Through the blood in my eyes, I saw the blow coming and tried to dodge, but his fist struck me in the throat, knocking me sideways with a savagery that spread-eagled me again on the wet turf, with the breath gone from my body and the sight from my eyes. I felt myself roll and slip, remembering what lay below, blindly drove my left hand into the turf to stop myself falling. My sword was still in my right hand. He jumped for me again, and with all the weight of his big body brought both feet down on my hand, where it grasped the sword. The hand broke across the metal guard. I heard it go. The sword snapped upwards like a trap springing, and caught him across his outstretched hand. He cursed in a gasp, without words, and recoiled momentarily. Somehow, I had the sword in my left hand. He came in again as quickly as before, and even as I tried to drag myself away, he made a quick stride forward and stamped again on my broken hand. Somebody screamed. I felt myself thrash over, mindless with pain, blind. With the last strength I had, I jabbed the sword, hopelessly shortened, up at his straddled body, felt it torn from my hand, and then lay waiting without resistance for the last kick in my side that would send me over the cliff. I lay there, breathless, retching, choking on bile, my face to the ground, and my left hand driven into the soft tufts of sea pink, as if it clung to life for me. The beat and crash of the sea shook the cliff, and even this slight tremor seemed to grind pain through my body. It hurt at every point. My side pained as though the ribs were stove in, and the skin had been stripped from the cheek that lay pressed hard into the turf. There was blood in my mouth, and my right hand was a jelly of pain. I could hear someone, some other man a long way off, making small, abject sounds of pain. The blood in my mouth bubbled and oozed down my chin onto the ground, and I knew it was I who was groaning. Merlin, son of Ambrosius, the prince, the great enchanter. I shut my mouth on the blood and began to push and claw my way to my feet. The pain in my hand was cruel, the worst of all. I heard, rather than felt, the small bones grind where their ends were broken. I felt myself lurching as I got to my knees, and dared not try to stand upright so near the cliff's edge. Below me, a master wave struck, thundered, fountained up into the greying light, and then fell back to crash into the next rising wave. The cliff trembled. A seabird, the first of the day, sailed overhead, crying. I crawled away from the edge, and then stood up. Brithale was lying near the postern gate, on his belly, as if he had been trying to crawl there. Behind him, the turf was a wake of blood, glossy on the grass, like the track of a snail. He was dead. The last desperate stroke had caught the big vein in the groin, and the life had pumped out of him as he tried to crawl for help. Some of the blood that soaked me must be his. I went on my knees beside him and made sure. Then I rolled him over and over till the slope took him, and he went after his sword into the sea. The blood would have to take care of itself. It was raining again, and with luck the blood would be gone before anyone saw it. The postern gate stood open still. I reached it somehow and stood, supporting myself with a shoulder against the jamb. There was blood in my eyes too. I wiped it away with a wet sleeve. Rafe had gone, the porter also. The torch had burned low in its socket, and the smoky light showed the lodge and stairway empty. The castle was quiet. At the top of the stairway the door stood partly open, and I saw light there and heard voices, quiet voices, urgent but unalarmed. Uther's party must still be in control. There had been no alarm given. I shivered in the dawn chill. Somewhere, unheeded, the cloak had dropped from my arm. I didn't trouble to look for it. I let go of the gate and tried standing upright without support. I could do it. I started to make my way down the path towards the bay. And that's the end of chapter 9.